Welcome back to another deep dive. We're here to sift through all the noise and pull out what really matters for you. Today, we're jumping into something pretty fascinating, maybe a bit perplexing too. It's this intersection of, well, celebrity culture, advertising, and yeah, the often messy world of politics. For this one, we've looked at a whole range of sources, recent news from places like The Guardian, Forbes, Fox News. We've also dug into some academic research, specifically a study from Cal Poly Pomona on celebrity political endorsements. And, even just scrolling through social media discussions gives you some insight. So, our goal here is to unpack this whole recent thing with actress Sydney Sweeney and her American Eagle ad. We want to connect that to the bigger picture, like how celebrities influence things, what it maybe tells us about where culture is at right now. We'll try to hit the facts from different angles so you get a solid grasp without feeling totally buried in information.
Yeah, it's really striking, isn't it? How a commercial, fundamentally designed to sell jeans just explodes. Suddenly it's this huge flashpoint for political and social debate. It really forces you to ask, okay, what's actually being communicated here? And, how did that message collide with public feelings and these existing political narratives?
Okay, so let's start right there. How did a jeans ad cause such a stir? It really began with the ad itself, American Eagle's campaign titled Sydney Sweeney Has Great Genes. Pretty straightforward pun, right? Genes and genes. So in the ad, Sweeney says something like, genes are passed down from parents to offspring, often determining traits like hair color, personality, and even eye color. And then the camera zooms in on her blue eyes and she says, my genes are blue. That wordplay, especially with a blonde, blue-eyed actress.
Okay.
It just immediately sparked this huge online backlash.
Right. And the core of that controversy really was the accusation that the ad was maybe subtly, maybe not so subtly, pushing eugenics, or at least racially loaded beauty standards. You saw it all over social media, people calling it tone-deaf, racially coded. Some even went as far as fascist-coded or Nazi propaganda. For a lot of critics, that phrase, great genes, has this historical baggage, this connection to celebrating whiteness. That was a big red flag for them.
And it wasn't just the racial undertones. Some critics also jumped on the ad for, well, sexualizing Sweeney, catering to the male gaze, as they say. People were drawing comparisons to that old, controversial Calvin Klein ad with Brooke Shields from the 80s.
Yeah, that parallel came up quite a bit.
Right, but here's where it gets really layered. While all this is happening, this controversy is swirling. It comes out publicly that Sydney Sweeney is actually a registered Republican voter in Florida. The records showed she registered June 14th, 2024, which, interestingly, happened to be Donald Trump's 78th birthday. And it was shortly after she bought this pretty expensive home down in the Florida Keys, like $13.5 million.
And that just throws gasoline on the fire, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It immediately raises this big question. When a celebrity's work sparks a political debate like this, does their private political registration suddenly become public domain? Fair game. Sweeney herself, well, she hasn't said anything publicly about registering as Republican. And if you look at her history, she's actually publicly supported causes usually seen as more liberal-leaning, LGBTQ plus rights, trans rights, BLM, pro-choice issues. So it's complicated. Not cut and dry.
That's a really important point. And like you said, it's not the first time her personal life bumped into politics. You might remember back in 2022, those photos from her mom's 60th birthday party. They went viral. Guests wearing those Make 60 Great Again hats, kind of like Mag G hats and Blue Lives Matter shirts. Sweeney at the time said they were just innocent celebrations, nothing political intended. But, it shows this pattern, maybe, of her orbit sparking these kinds of debates.
Yeah, exactly. There's a bit of a history there.
So inevitably, the ad controversy grabs the attention of major political figures. Donald Trump hears about Sweeney's Republican registration, and he publicly says something like, she's a registered Republican. Ooh, now I love her ad. He continues, is that right? Is Sydney Sweeney? You'd be surprised how many people are Republicans. Finishes with, if Sydney Sweeney is a registered Republican, I think her ad is fantastic.
And then, connecting that dot further, he really ramps it up on Truth Social. He calls it the hottest ad out there, and he explicitly frames it within this pro-American, anti-woke narrative. He even contrasts her directly with Taylor Swift, calling her a woke singer, and says, being woke is for losers. Being Republican is what you want to be. So it became this clear political symbol for him.
Yeah, a total appropriation of the ad's meaning, or at least the controversy around it. And it wasn't just Trump. J.D. Vance, the vice president, also jumped in. He was mocking unhinged Dems called Sweeney an all-American beautiful woman and said her ad was basically a rebuke to wokeness. Even the White House communications director weighed in, calling the backlash, cancel culture run amok. So Very partisan lines were drawn.
And this partisan embrace, well, it meant massive media attention. One source we saw pointed out that Fox News, for instance, covered this ad backlash 28 times more than it covered the Epstein controversy in that same week. That's over 85 minutes of airtime just on the ad. It really puts the scale of the media focus into perspective, right?
Wow, 28 times. That's incredible. Now, what's really interesting here is American Eagle's reaction. Unlike, say, Bud Light with the Dylan Mulvaney situation where they tried to distance themselves pretty quickly, American Eagle basically doubled down. They put out a statement saying essentially, Sydney Sweeney has great genes, is and always was about the genes, her story. They said they'd keep celebrating how everyone wears their genes their own way and that great genes look good on everyone. A very different strategy.
A very different strategy indeed. And you know what? The market, surprisingly perhaps, responded positively to all this noise. American Eagle stock actually saw a pretty significant jump. One report mentioned almost 23% up, apparently driven by retail investors, maybe some of that meme stock dynamic we see sometimes.
So the controversy actually helped their stock.
It seems like it, at least in the short term. It really highlights how these political narratives can seriously move a stock price now. Even if, analysts often warn that this kind of buzz based on celebrity or politics, it often lacks durability, they'd still advise looking at the company fundamentals. But the short-term impact was undeniable.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. This whole Sweeney situation tells us a lot about celebrities and politics, but it's not exactly new, is it? I mean, you had stars like Al Jolson and Mary Pickford endorsing President Harding way back in the early 1900s. It's pretty standard today.
Oh, absolutely. It's been around for a long time. But the effectiveness of these endorsements, that's where it gets really tricky, kind of contradictory, actually. Some research does suggest they can be, quote, incredibly powerful, especially for things like boosting civic engagement, getting people to register to vote online, signing up to be poll workers, that sort of thing.
Right. But then other studies paint a different picture. That Cal Poly Pomona study we looked at from 2021. Their hypothesis was actually that celebrity endorsements might hurt a candidate's chances, especially with young voters who are already politically aware and engaged. They did this survey, right? A hypothetical George Clooney endorsement for a progressive candidate. Among political science students, it basically doubled the number who said they were not likely to vote for that candidate. Went from about 35% to 65%. So for that group, the celebrity endorsement actually made the perceptions of the candidate worse.
Exactly. So what that suggests is if you're already informed, already interested in politics, you're probably less swayed by a celebrity. You're more likely to vote based on, well, your own knowledge and policy preferences. In fact, the study notes people generally trust celebrities more when they're endorsing, say, shampoo than a political candidate. Makes sense, right?
Yeah, that does track.
And it also mentioned that Democrats might be a bit more open to celebrity endorsements, generally speaking,
Correct.
but Republicans and independents, they often respond better to endorsements from, say, non-celebrity officials, people seen as nonpartisan.
That's fascinating. You just have to look at the 2024 election, right? Kamala Harris had this huge list of A-list endorsers: Taylor Swift, Oprah, George Clooney, Beyonce, I mean, massive names. And despite all that star power, she lost. Which led some commentators to ask, is the whole era of celebrity endorsements kind of over? Did it maybe even backfire, make the campaign seem a bit out of touch?
Yeah, that out-of-touch critique definitely surfaced. As one consultant put it, celebrities can add a shimmer to an event, but they don't necessarily give voters what they actually want, which is, policy, substance, direction.
Right.
Okay, so one last piece to connect here. This American Eagle ad, with its great genes pun, it might not be totally isolated. We're maybe seeing a little trend starting. There's this new Dunkin' ad, for example. It features actor Gavin Castellano, and he says something like, "This tans. Genetics. I just got my color analysis back. Guess what? Golden summer. Literally. Another genetics reference."
Which does make you wonder, right, why this sudden seeming obsession with genetics and advertising. Some analysts are suggesting maybe it signals a shift away from what they call the woke-vertising era, that period roughly ending around 2022 where brands were really trying hard to align with progressive social causes.
Ah, interesting.
And now, with figures like Trump explicitly declaring a war on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, maybe some companies feel like they can, quote, gleefully do away with pretending to care about diversity or feminism. That's one interpretation floating around. And maybe it also taps into something broader happening in society. where these sort of eugenicist ideas are subtly creeping more into the mainstream conversation. You see examples like Elon Musk talking about intelligent people needing to have more kids, or those stories about hipster eugenicists trying to create genetically optimized children,
Uh-huh.
or even startups that screen IVF embryos for, quote, desirable traits.
Right. So while these ads aren't directly promoting eugenics, obviously maybe they reflect this growing cultural comfort level with discussing genetics in these ways. It's tapping into something that's already percolating.
Okay, so after digging through all of this, what does it really mean for you trying to make sense of the information overload out there? We've seen how a seemingly simple jeans ad just detonated into this big political and cultural fight, fueled by a celebrity's private political choice and amplified like crazy by political figures picking
Yeah.
sides. And we've also seen that the whole idea of celebrity endorsements in politics, it's really not straightforward. Their impact is debatable, and it can carry real risks, both for the star and the candidate they back.
Absolutely. I think this deep dive really underscores that dynamic interplay
Mm.
between branding, celebrity power, and raw politics in today's media world.
Yeah.
It kind of pushes you to ask yourself, when you see a celebrity speak out or a brand take some kind of stance, intentional or maybe not, how much are you reacting to the actual message? And how much are you reacting to the messenger or maybe the political spin that immediately gets wrapped around it?
Yeah, that's the core question. And it leaves us with this kind of provocative thought to chew on. In a time where, even jeans can apparently be designer, how much power do these subtle cultural hints and ads really have? Do they shape our views in ways that go beyond just wanting to buy the product? And maybe what responsibility do brands and celebrities have when the things they create for commerce suddenly become charged political statements?
It's a lot to think about. We definitely encourage you to keep watching, keep questioning, and keep trying to understand the real genes and DNA of the messages coming at you every day.